Welcome to A Brief History of the Past. I'm Kaelan Burrows, and today we're exploring the history of H.H. Holmes. What? What's that? A show on HGTV? What's that? What? He was a confidence man and murderer active in the 1800s and considered America's first serial killer. So, probably didn't guest on Property Brothers then. H.H. Holmes is thought to have been born on May 16, 1861 in Gilmanton, New Hampshire. Now, Holmes did not start off as H.H. In fact, his birth name was Herman Webster Mudgett. Herman Mudgett? That's the most ridiculous name I've ever heard of. I'd have changed it to Triple H as well. I would like to apologise to anyone with the last name Mudgett. It's not your fault you have a stupid name, it's your parents. I would like to apologise for my previous apology. It's not your parents' fault. It's not. And I shouldn't have said so. I apologise. It's really your ancestors' fault. Holmes was born into money and was a very intelligent child, perhaps too intelligent, as he took an interest in medicine and supposedly captured animals and performed surgery on them. It's also thought that he might have been responsible for the death of a childhood friend, though that's unsubstantiated. So, you're saying the thing that movies always use to show that a child is going to grow up to become a serial killer was taken from this chap's actual life? That's messed up.
Of course!
Holmes attended... What? I'm sorry, I just refuse to call him Herman Mudgett. Holmes attended medical school at the University of Michigan, where he began his various schemes. He and his anatomy instructor, William Erdman, reportedly supplied the department with cadavers by robbing graves. Holmes would also use the cadavers for insurance scams, where he would get coverage for people that didn't exist, then present the cadavers as the insured. Did no one find it odd that Herman Mudgett was the beneficiary to so many people? Was Mudgett a more common name back then? Because I would argue that it should not have been. Yeah. In 1886, Herman moved to Chicago, where he changed his name to Henry Howard Holmes and began going by doctor after getting a job at a pharmacy. Holmes would eventually buy the store in 1887. Now, there's a number of stories about Holmes killing the previous owner of the store, but the evidence proves that Dr. Elizabeth Sarah Holton, or E.S. Holton, as she was known, lived well longer than that of our notorious serial killer. Yeah, I'm sure he easily had the money to buy the shop with all his insurance scams.
Logical.
After acquiring the pharmacy, Holmes would purchase a parcel of land across the street where he would construct a two-storey building that he called the Castle, though it would go on to earn the much more macabre nickname Murder Castle after Holmes's crimes were revealed. Holmes built a castle? That's what you call ironic. What? What do you mean, no it's not? The Murder Castle was reportedly outfitted with secret passageways, soundproof rooms that could be locked from the outside, trapdoors, gas lines to asphyxiate victims, and a kiln to burn the bodies. You'd think someone on the construction crew would add some questions. Oi, what's with all the soundproof rooms? Nothing. Why? What have you heard? Nothing. Just thought it was weird, that's all. Right. Well, I'm part of a band and, we just don't want to keep the neighbours up with late night sessions. Right. Then what's with the trapdoors? Well, those are, quicker than stairs if you're going down and also less expensive than installing a lift. Yeah. That's it. Makes sense. What about the section on the blueprints labelled Murder Basement? Oh, that! Well, that is... it. While the infamous Murder Castle is one of the most known aspects of the H.H. Holmes story, most of it might not be true. While the building did have chutes, it was common for buildings of the time to have laundry chutes to the basement. There was really no evidence of the other reported death traps. It's believed that the stories about the murder castle and the much exaggerated number of Holmes's victims was partially or entirely made up by the journalists of the time to sell newspapers, a popular practice in the 1890s. People used to make up stories and pass them off as legitimate news. Glad we don't do that no more. When people think about H.H. Holmes, they think of a prolific serial killer with a murder house and massive body count. But while he did kill people, his murders were generally tied to his real passion: scams. Take the castle itself. When it was first built, he tried to avoid paying the architects and steel company who took him to court over it in 1888. He eventually added a third floor to the structure, claiming that it was going to be a hotel space. It was never finished, and was likely just another scam to con investors out of their money. You know what's funny is all the petty scamming he did. If he just opened a hotel space, rented out the apartments on the second floor, and operated the businesses on the ground floor and across the street, he probably could have had a lucrative little business empire. I mean, isn't the whole point of crime to get the most gains for the least amount of work? This chap was busting his humps scamming until the day he was caught. What an idiot!
Whoa, easy. What's with the personal attacks?
Holmes's favourite scams were always tied to insurance, and the murders he's most famous for were typically tied to those scams. He loved taking out insurance policies on people and then bumping them off to collect the money. Of the 27 murders Holmes confessed to, only a handful of them have ever been confirmed, and of those confirmed, a number of them were connected to his insurance scams. You know, he's turning into the world's lamest serial killer. But one hell of a con artist.
I'm sure of it. I hate him.
Holmes's actual victims were Julia Connor and her 6-year-old daughter Pearl, Emmeline Sigrand, Wilhelmina Williams and her sister Anna, Emily Van Tassel, Benjamin Peitzel and 3 of his children. Even that list has some holes in it. For example, 31-year-old Julia Connor and her daughter lived in the castle, and Julia was in a relationship with Holmes. Her and her daughter disappeared on Christmas Eve of 1891. Holmes initially claimed that they went off to visit Julia's dying sister, but later changed his story to say that Julia fled to avoid her ex-husband Lawrence. Eventually, Holmes would admit to accidentally killing Julia during an abortion procedure and to then poisoning Pearl. Emmeline Sigrand started working for Holmes in May of 1892 and was also in a relationship with him. She disappeared in December of 1892. Okay, I see what's going on here. Why, these were murders of convenience. Holmes was just trying to cheap out on buying Christmas gifts. I mean, not that I could blame him, really. I mean, if I had to choose between murder and buying white elephant gifts for you lot, guess what I'm choosing?
Sick.
Emmeline's parents were told that she left to marry a man named Robert Phelps, but police did eventually find her skeleton in the home of a Chicago doctor. Ah, back to his old college ways, huh? Except this time, instead of grave robbing and cadavers, it was murder and skeletons. I mean, you have to hand it to him. He really did have a lot of tricks to make money off death.
Bogus.
In 1893, 24-year-old Wilhelmina Williams gained employment by Holmes and signed over some property she owned in Texas to Alexander Bond, one of Holmes's aliases. Holmes and Williams then rented an apartment together, with Wilhelmina's 18-year-old sister Anna coming to visit shortly after. In July, a letter indicating that Anna was moving to Europe was sent to her aunt, after which the sisters were never heard from again. This was 3 different women in 3 years with a couple of +1s. How did no one catch wise? What's that? Women didn't matter in society back then. What do you mean back then? They still don't. Have you seen the current American president? In 1894, Holmes left Chicago due to insurance companies pressuring to have him prosecuted. He went to Fort Worth, Texas, where he had stolen that property from Wilhelmina Williams. Benjamin Peitzel was a friend and accomplice to Holmes, taking part in a number of his criminal schemes. The two were travelling around committing fraud, a tour de scams if you will. At one point, Holmes was briefly arrested and, while in custody, got the idea from career criminal Marion Edgepeth to fake his own death for an insurance payout. Marion Edgepeth? Come on, that's not a real name. I don't know what name is dumber, Marion Hedgepeth or Herman Mudgett. I would like to apologise to any other Hedgepeths out there. What are we doing? There's no other Hedgepeths out there. It's got to be a made-up name. Holmes attempted to fake his own death, but dropped the con when the insurance company became suspicious and refused to pay the claim. Holmes then convinced his friend Peitzel to do the same scam. The plan was for Peitzel to set himself up as an inventor in Philadelphia who would die in a lab explosion to disfigure the cadaver used to fool the insurance investigator. What Peitzel didn't know was that the actual plan was to not fake his death. How did he not see that coming? Right? I mean, everyone else that's been close to Holmes was murdered or disappeared. Hell, Peitzel probably helped on some of them, right? I mean, how do you think he was safe? Yeah, I'll bet Peitzel thought he could fix him, right? Yeah, he's like, sure, he's killed all those other people, but I'm special and he loves me. No, he loves conning and selling skeletons of his victims. What a git. I'm glad Peitzel's dead, I really am.
Uncool, bro.
Holmes collected the insurance on Peitzel using one of his daughters to identify the body, then convinced Peitzel's wife, Carrie, that Peitzel was still alive so that he could collect the insurance money again, this time on a cadaver in St. Louis. He also convinced her to let him take 3 of her 5 children into his charge. Holmes then fled to Canada where he murdered the children. Carrie, fearing for her missing children and husband, eventually went to the authorities in November of 1894. Holmes was arrested in Boston, Massachusetts on November 17, 1894, having been tracked there by a Pinkerton detective serving a warrant for horse theft from Texas. Just like how they took down Capone. What? Taxes? Please, I'm pretty sure Capone never paid taxes. Frank Geyer was the officer assigned to investigate the disappearance of the Peitzel children in Philadelphia. In July of 1895, he, along with Detective Cuddy of Toronto, found the bodies of Peitzel's missing daughters. The body of their missing brother was later found in Detroit. Around the same time, 2 graves were found in the basement of the castle, though it's not clear which victims were buried there. Holmes was tried for the murder of Benjamin Peitzel. He opted to represent himself at the trial, and they say a man who represents themselves as a fool for a client, but Holmes was clever, so I'm sure it worked out for him. What's that? What? He was convicted of murder and sentenced to death. Well, I guess he did have a fool for a client.
You chose poorly.
After the conviction, Holmes would confess to killing 27 people, though many of his reported victims turned out to have died of natural causes or were still alive at the time of his claim. Various books and newspapers would inflate the body count to the point that Holmes now has developed this myth about him and how he killed up to 200 people. In the end, he was only ever tried for the murder of Benjamin Peitzel, despite the evidence that he also killed the Peitzel children, though his sentence was already death, so I suppose they couldn't kill him 4 times. However, if they could have resuscitated him and killed him 3 more times, he would have deserved it. H. Holmes was executed by hanging on May 7, 1896 at Moyamensing Prison in Philadelphia. According to reports, Holmes's neck did not break and he died slowly by strangulation over the course of 15 minutes. Is that the intention of hanging? There's got to be a better way to break a neck, right? I think a baseball bat to the top of the spine would do the trick. Yep, so I've heard. There you have it, everyone, a brief history of H. Holmes. Be sure to check out my cited links in the description for a more detailed history of this overblown con artist. If you want some more fun murdery history, you should check out my history of Jack the Ripper. I think you'll find it a real side splitter. not because of the way he cut people open, but because of the jokes about the case. Never mind.
Snap out of it!
What are your thoughts on H. Holmes? What sort of history topics do you want to see me cover in future videos? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks, and I'll see you all in the future. The body of their missing brother was later found in Detroit. Detroit. It was found in Detroit, baby. Yeah, yeah. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and a share. Don't forget to subscribe and click that bell icon to be notified when more brief history of the past videos go up. Happy Halloween!